So welcome everyone. Hey, Tamisha, welcome. I want to do a quick introduction and welcome to everyone. Thank you for coming. This is the first time I've ever done the Founders Table on CEO School, so I'm super excited. I wish I had a actual table that we could all be sitting at, but maybe one day we can do that. We can all actually come to the table and break bread and actually have a conversation. So I invited all of you because I really respect all of you. You're all in different industries, but you are all, to me, you're all the best at what you do. You're beasts in your industries and you have good hearts and you're giving and your spirit is just generous. So that is why you're here. I just appreciate you sharing with our audience. So let's just get started. I want to go around and because this is a little bit different, it's not our regular CEO school, I'm going to allow you guys to introduce yourselves. I'll start with myself so you can kind of see the format and then you can introduce yourselves. So my name is Lainika Johnson. I am the CEO of Trash Logic. We are a national waste logistics company based here in California. We also have offices in Washington, D.C. and in Seattle, Washington. I also am the founder of CEO School, which is why you're all here today. CEO School was born out of, and Pam, you'll appreciate this, CEO was born out of me attending a program at UCLA, which is where I met Pam. It was the management program for entrepreneurs at UCLA, and I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. And once I was there, I realized that I didn't actually know how to be a CEO. I just knew how to start a company. I didn't know how to actually run a company. So I learned how to run a company, and I decided that everyone who starts a business needs this information. So I started CEO School with that in mind to bring it to the community. And so it's been going strong, I think now for 3 years. I recently brought it to Fanbase and to Instagram. So welcome, welcome, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to CEO School. And I'm gonna toss it over to Flor because I'm gonna tell you guys real quick before Flor introduces herself and tells you a little bit about her story. Flor was my customer. That is how I met her. She was my customer. I sold her very, very expensive handbags. So that is how Flor and I met years and years and years ago. I think 10 years ago now, 10 or 11 years ago. So Flor, welcome to CEO School, and take it away.
Thank you, Lainika, and that's very true. I am so grateful for inviting me to this CEO school and to share my journey as a CEO. Funny, I've never considered myself as a CEO, but I did start a few companies in healthcare industry, namely Valley Home Care, Community First, and acquired ownership with Grace Home Healthcare and Care Partners, and now another acquisition with Arizona American Hospice. But on top of that, I also started publication companies, F Magazine in the Arizona Filipino Forum in Arizona. So I'm a nurse entrepreneur, and I guess you can say nursepreneur or entrepreneurs, but I always say I prefer nursepreneur because I would always be a nurse first before I'm an entrepreneur. So nursepreneur. Good morning, everyone.
I love that.
I love that nursepreneur.
I love that nursepreneur. That's great.
Yeah, I was actually thinking of that the other day when I was putting together the flyer for this. I was thinking, you know, Flor is so inspiring because she always centers nursing in whatever she does. And everything that you do, I think is so successful because you don't waver from what it is that you know. Like, you know what you know, and you build your businesses based on what you know. I mean, you're a fashionista too, right? So you know, your magazines and everything makes sense, but you are really centered on nursing. And I always see you go back to that. You know, she's been a DON, which is the director of nursing. Like, she still goes back to nursing no matter what. So I love that. And when I say Flor is successful, like, she is very, very humble. When I was telling you guys, I sold purses, and and Floor was my customer. She actually hired me out of that job. I sold handbags at Barney's, and Floor hired me as a sales rep to work for her organization. And when I tell you that she is the most humble, sweet, beautiful person, the reason that she's so successful is because she really does have a loving spirit and a good heart. And you would never know that she has founded all of these companies because she doesn't flaunt, she doesn't walk around like, that she's that woman, but she is that woman. I just do not be mistaken. She is that woman. So thank you, Floor, for being here. I'm super excited to have you. So next we have Pam Feld. We met at the UCLA program, and Pam is the CEO of Triumph Technology Group. So Pam, tell us a little bit about your journey and the company that you started.
Oh my goodness. Hi. It's so good to see you and meet all of you today. And it's so funny because I had no idea that you'd been doing this for 3 years, Lainika. This is awesome. And I have something to share about that as well. But, basically I have been, I guess, a serial entrepreneur of sorts and probably the queen of reinvention. My company is Triumph Technology Group, and we are a cybersecurity consulting and training firm. I started probably about 20 years ago in a completely different industry, but it's all in relation to technology. So started out of the garage. And again, as a kid, I've been an entrepreneur all throughout, always doing something, selling something or whatever. But, the last 20 years have been all in the technology arena. So started with doing supplies and cartridges and became a manufacturing company, acquired a few companies along the way to get larger and to grow our business. And so that's always been the merger and acquisition part of it's always been an interesting part. And then as these businesses continue to mature, I've continued to reinvent and change and go kind of in advance of other technologies because each technology keeps getting, changing and left behind, so to speak. So the latest reinvention has been in the last few years with the cybersecurity when we found one of our national clients had a hack. And I said, you know what, we have all these clients who need these small businesses, all shapes and sizes from small to very large national companies who need this kind of work. And so we decided to kind of go full force with that. And it's kind of around the time I met you, Lainika, about 3, 4, 5 years ago. And we've been basically doing the other business as well, the hardware side, as well as this consulting side for about 5 years or so. During the pandemic, what kind of happened, a very short version of this is people started tapping me to talk and speak about cybersecurity. And so I've become a national speaker as well for the WeBank organization. I don't know if all of you are familiar with that. It's basically the certifying agency for all women-owned businesses. So that's been a really great journey for me to become a speaker as well on the national level and to be able to do cybersecurity training and digital transformation webinars. So it's really ironic when you're talking, Lainika, today, because one of the things that I'm actually looking on when I saw this to talk to you about is rolling out a CEO tech school of sorts. So basically, because I've seen this need now that I've taught, so many students over the last, few years, I see this real huge need for people to kind of embrace technology and especially females, because there's been this, there's a lot more men than women in the technology field, let's just put it that way. And so it's really important for all of us to embrace that and not be afraid or let anyone talk down to us. And just to be able to learn and not feel like, someone is saying, oh, you shouldn't know this or you should already know this. So I'm actually rolling that out here next year. So I'll have to learn from you and all of you today. So it's really great to meet you all. And I'm happy to, share any of my other experiences. But, UCLA, just continuing on my education. And I went to UCLA, Stanford, Dartmouth, and a whole bunch of other organizations and educational programs in order to keep, going on this journey and learning how to keep reinventing and changing and scaling. So thanks for having me today.
Man, I'm so excited. When I tell you that the UCLA program really did transform the way that I thought about business. And then it really did connect me to some amazing CEOs and amazing founders like Pam. There were some other people there too. There's a bunch of men that I didn't invite today because, I wanted to have a women's roundtable, but there were some wonderful men too that we met. But it really was fantastic. And you mentioned reinvention, and I think reinvention kind of is the one thing that I think we can all say defines our journey, right? Is that we have to constantly reinvent ourselves. I think we can all kind of relate to that and speak to that. I know, Adrian, that we spoke about that before, right, when you were on CEO school. So with that, I want to introduce Adrian Brian. She is an amazing real estate broker, commercial real estate broker in Arizona, and she just won a huge honor in the state of Arizona, and I want her to tell us about that. So Adrian, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your company and the award that you just won, because it's super exciting.
Yeah, I didn't even know we got it until yesterday.
Oh, okay.
So hello, everyone, ladies, good morning. It is wonderful to be in the room. My name is Adrian Brian. I'm actually the CEO of Bryant Commercial Real Estate, along with my daughter, Genevieve. I've been in real estate industry for about 22 years. And during COVID, I was actually going to leave the industry. And I was making a transition into social services. And then I dropped out of school. And then we launched a little traffic survival school and interlock business and electronic monitoring business as well. So I am, I guess, a serial entrepreneur, but the way that we do it is by having a team. And so my focus is the real estate, but I oversee the operations of all of our companies. And we are actually expanding to Alabama in a couple of weeks. So on our safety side. But the core of who I am and what we do from a business standpoint is about people and being a resource and a connector. And that is what we do. And so that extends into all brackets of our fields of expertise. And it's people serving people and being there for people at moments where they need you and they need your expertise and they need your support and they need your guidance. And so that's what we do. So so yesterday I just found out that we were named like one of the top 50 small businesses in Arizona, I think it was. I didn't even know. They sent a
Congratulations.
Yeah. And then it's funny. I was 2022 most influential woman in commercial real estate. So in an elite group and so many other little accolades. But my biggest accolade is really what you see in my background, and that's Darth Vader. And so
I was just about to ask, what's the connection for us Star Wars fans?
That is the biggest thing. That's what gives me the most excitement, along with being with you ladies today. So that is who I am, and it's a pleasure and an honor. I have a high school diploma.
Amen.
And that's it.
And you see that, right, with a lot of founders. You don't see a lot of founders that have, degrees and advanced degrees. You see a lot of founders.
That's it. So I want people to know that if you have a vision and you have the tenacity and the grit to do every component and facet of what you do from a company ownership and operation standpoint, you can achieve anything that you put your heart to and set out.
Hallelujah. That's right.
And so that is what I advocate. That is what I know. And I applaud you, Lainika, for providing a sounding board for people where they can be real and vulnerable and transparent in regards to where they are in business. And so I am grateful to just be recognized to be part of your panel today. So
amen. Because I tell people, this is not Instagram business, y'all.
It is not.
This is not for show. This is not for play. This is real life stuff.
It is real stuff.
So when we come here, we talk about what's really happening. So I want to make sure that we give Tamisha a chance to introduce herself. Tamisha is one of my newest business friends, and I'm super excited to have her here today. We've spoken before. I think I introduced Adrian and Tamisha recently. So I'm excited that you guys are all meeting again and you guys are meeting new people. So Tamisha, tell us about Car Hops, tell us about yourself and a little bit about your journey and, kind of what drives you to be an entrepreneur.
Yes, thank you so much, Lainika, for hosting this space. I am honored to be in a space with such beautiful ladies, talented, successful. So thank you so much. My name is Tamisha. I'm a co-founder of a restaurant and retail delivery service here in Georgia. We compete with companies like Doordash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats. So if you know of those companies, you know exactly what we do. However, we do it better. My journey. So I spent about 13, almost 14 years in the hotel industry back after college. And so I started at the front desk, quickly moved myself up into the sales department, anywhere from sales coordinator, sales manager, director of sales, regional director of sales. So, I got a lot of hospitality and experience through the hotel industry, working for the best of the best, Marriott's, Hyatt's, Hilton's, Ritz-Carlton's, so a lot of the training that I have that I bring to this company come from the hotel industry. And then prior to that, I worked at so many fast food places and restaurants throughout high school and college. So again, more hospitality experience, more service experience, sales experience, operations, which helps us be successful in the food delivery service. Because again, we are a service industry. We are a personal service industry. We're delivering people's food and that's one of the most important things is food. So again, I bring that experience over to the car hops industry. We started in 2019 with one location in Thomaston, which is where I'm from. And we quickly grew. So this was maybe 6 to 7 months prior to the pandemic that's coming into the height of the pandemic. And
good timing.
Right. It's crazy. I thank God. But we had a moment where we were I think it was that March, April, when everything was just, we had no clue what was going on. We had a moment hey, should we shut down because we want to make sure that our team is safe? At that point they were everybody's staying off the streets. If you can only go out if you have this letter saying that you can be out on the streets. And so we were okay, look, do we shut down or do we keep going? We asked our team what they would like to do, and they were no, we're going to keep this train going. So we were one of the vital parts of helping the restaurants. Y'all still hear me?
Yes.
Apple call coming through, so I'm
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Lainika.
So while we're waiting for Tamisha to come back, I want to get into some of these questions that I have for you guys. So I know that we spoke about reinvention, and that was one of my main questions. I find that even though I'm staying in the same industry, right? I'm staying in the same business. I have found myself having to reinvent not only, my business, but reinvent myself over and over and over again, reinvent the way that I think, the way that I operate, the way that I move. But I find that reinvention is the thing that I have to always allow myself to do, right? Always give myself grace to stop and start over. Do you guys find yourself, do you find yourself in that same position? Do you find that you have to stop midstream sometimes and just start over? And let me start with Tamisha, since she dropped out and had to come back in.
So I just wanted to wrap up by saying, at that point, after our team was hey, let's keep going, we were fortunate to open up 2 more locations around the surrounding cities. And then we grew. So now we have 6 locations that we service here in Georgia, getting ready to expand outside of Georgia to Alaska and a few other places. So I'm just thankful for the opportunity. So thank you so much again.
You're welcome. So the question for you is, do you find yourself having to stop yourself and just start over? And I'm going to add a 2-part to that, a second part. And do you find it difficult to do that when there's other people depending on you at that same time?
Yes. So to answer the first question, yes, we definitely allow ourselves the opportunity to stop, rest, and reset. And I'm thankful just because I understand that, our mind, body, and souls will let us know when it is time to like really just take a pause. And every moment, every time that we've had to shut down or do that reset, when we came out of it on the other side, the money, like the revenue that we generated surpassed what we could have generated if we would have just kept going, right?
Okay.
Thing that I always say too is like, it's kind of like the Chick-fil-A thing, that how they're closed every Sunday, but they still make way more revenue than any other fast food chain out there. And maybe over the last year, I've learned that when it's time for us to just, if everything is going crazy in the business, if it's time for us to just rest, reset, get a new game plan, because it's all about having some type of game plan in place, then, when we come back and we're ready, we are making more of an impact and we're making way more revenue than we could have if we would have just kept going with being burnt out and, those things. Yes, at first it was definitely hard because it was like, how do I just put the business on pause, even if it's for 2 days?
Right.
And, that was a struggle for me because I work 7 days a week.
Right.
Like that was a struggle. So
I would say all of us here can relate to that, right? We're all kind of workaholics. Like it's just in our DNA.
It's in our blood.
We just like to work. We like to work, and it's kind of why we are successful. It's because we're driven people. So it's hard to pause. Has anybody else struggled there in that area with just putting yourself on pause and allowing yourself to restart? Floor?
Well, yeah, definitely. I had my baby company, which I started from ground up, and that is Valley Home Care, and we ended up selling it. And for us owners of the company, one of the hardest things to do is what you've said, thinking about how our employees gonna be after we leave the company. And fortunately, we were able to find a good person to run the business after us. But we always think of others. But I've also learned being an entrepreneur that you have to make those tough decisions. And at the end of the day, it is like, as an owner, this is your bread and butter. If you are gonna let go of someone, or you need to stop or close the business, you will always have to think of yourself first as well. Because if you can't take care of, it's the basic, like if you can't take care of yourself, you won't be able to take care of others. So at the end of the day, you make tough decisions as a business owner. And I think the rationale behind, or the justification, so that as owners we feel good, is that they will find another job if we ever shut down. But as business owners, that's it. We don't have any. And then you have to reinvent yourself.
Yes, that's so important to, I think that's the other thing too, and is thinking about your employees and how they're impacted. I struggle with that so much, to my detriment, right? I wake up every day thinking about how people are feeding their families and their healthcare, and how they're going to make it. And I oftentimes, I would say more often than not, place myself on the back burner, and realize that if everything falls apart, my employees will go get another job.
Right.
If everything falls apart, what am I going to do, right? So if I keep putting myself on the back burner, then I'm the person that's left behind when everything, just breaks down, because I haven't given myself a chance to reset. So it's very difficult when you really do feel for people and you're thinking about other people all the time. But I do struggle with that. Pam, what has been your experience with that?
I just wanted to add on to that because, now that I talk to women throughout the country in all shapes and sizes of businesses, and I have, a couple of groups here on the West Coast. We're all kind of feeling that same fatigue. I don't know anybody that isn't feeling it right now. Whether it's a combination of business, what's going on in the world, what's going on, in your personal life and sickness and illness and COVID and all that. So, I mean, I think we really all do have to, whether you're doing it now or not, is to take that step back and go, you know what, we've been going a mile a minute for the last few years, and probably before that as well, but in a different sort of intense way these last couple of years. So yeah, just taking a step back. And I know I'm doing that this summer more than I have, because, I've had a lot of those kind of craziness like most of us have had over the last few years. So yeah, I think it's important. Your point is perfect, because people not necessarily realizing it until you go, wait a minute, I'm just going and going, and I haven't taken a step back or taken some vacation, or even if it's a weekend, something to do some self-care and preserve yourself. Because if you're not, like the saying goes, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else.
Right.
So,
it's that oxygen mask on the airplane, right?
Absolutely.
So Adrian, what's your experience with that? And I also want to bring Kim into the conversation after Adrian, because I know Kim has a lot of experience. So Adrian, what's been your experience?
So COVID really was the thing that factor slowed me down. Before that, it was burning at both ends for the 20 plus years that I've been doing this. And COVID allowed me to recognize that nothing is going to stop. Everything will stop.
Yes.
And nothing is going to be damaged when it does stop.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did was I allowed myself that time to rest. My body was able to reset because I was going to bed at like 8 o'clock at night.
Okay.
And what I found was I was getting more accomplished in less amount of time. And so what I try to do is incorporate that. And I think what I do is a constant reevaluation of everything from an operation standpoint. So my background is franchising. So everything is about systems. And so what I continue to do and continue to evaluate is, how do we improve the system? How do we have those key players that I can depend upon, right? And provide value add to them by, we're incorporating like a profit share type of model in our business. So then everybody has a dial in where they are part of something and they are not just considered an employee, right?
Okay.
Because we are in an environment now where there is opportunity for everyone times 5, right? For every person, there's 5 opportunities. And so what do we do to capture and encapsulate the core team that you're building? And they reap those same benefits, you know what I mean? And so one thing that I found by resetting was, when we talk about a cup, right, being half full, what I looked at it from a standpoint for me was, I have to be self-full, right? I have to be filled. My cup has to be filled. And then the run over is going to benefit everybody. But it's not being selfish, it's just being self-full. And focusing on those things, it allows you to set boundaries. I have expectations of our team. They know what they are supposed to do. And I give them that freedom to be able to do that. And then all of them are working in their own leadership kind of component. And what I see, it benefits and grows the company. You know what I mean? And so those are the things that I've really evaluated over the years. And it was not because things were easy. It was because people had more control over my business than I did.
Wow, that is prolific. Say that again. Say that again.
Yeah. The people had more control over my business than I did. And what I went to a conference a few months ago, and TD Jake said, at the end of the day, I have the final say. I am the decision maker. I am the one that whomever is here, whoever modifies, whoever changes things, they're gone onto another company, and then I have to have the leg to stand on for the decisions that other people have made. I no longer allow people to be in more control of my company than I am.
I love it. Oh my goodness.
But I do foster the creativity and the leadership of everyone.
Yes.
Right.
I love that.
But they all know I have the final say. It's the vision that I have and I bring to the table. And some people might say that it's selfish, but life will turn you that way. when you have payroll and you see people
Yes.
eating tomahawk steaks and then trying to rub $2 together for
Yes.
Taco Bell.
There you go.
It's backwards.
It's backwards. So
Right.
so it's so interesting that you brought that up, because I have recently been having a conversation about isolation, right? I've been telling people that being, you always hear the phrase that it's lonely at the top,
Lonely.
right? We've heard that our entire lives. And it doesn't mean much until you're in a space of isolation, right? That phrase doesn't really mean anything. And as I built my company, I have definitely found myself in moments of isolation, but I don't think total isolation, right? I found myself in moments of, gosh, this is lonely. But I think recently I found myself in a space of total isolation, but a space of total isolation of my own doing. So the difference has been over the years as I built my company, I wanted people to talk to. I wanted to be able to share my struggles and what I was going through. And I needed somebody, and I felt like I needed somebody to understand, right? So I would try to build my tribe and bring people close to me and have my inner circle, right? But there was no one that was really, yes, no one was really doing what I was doing. So it was very difficult to find my tribe. And so recently I have discovered, after, several relationships having to be severed, that this space of isolation that I have created for myself is okay.
It's healthy.
It's healthy. And it's a
healthy.
season for me right now. And it's a season that I'm okay being in. You guys know I just moved to a new house. But for me, the process of buying the house was very different than the process of me buying any other house, right? The last time I bought a house, I was married, and it was about my family and, setting up, a life for us and a place for my kids. This time, I literally walked through every home, imagining myself in it and trying to see if I felt peace.
Yes.
I wanted to see if I felt peace in all of those spaces, right? And so in, the home that I chose, I know when I come home every day, I go and sit on the edge of the pool, and I am at complete peace every day.
Absolutely.
So, and it's a space of isolation, and I don't have people around me, and I like it that way, because when I tried to cultivate that and I tried to force those relationships to happen, they were forced relationships.
Yes.
They were very one-sided relationships. They were relationships that I was pouring into people and I was not being poured into, so I was being depleted. And
self-full.
Yes.
That's that self-full.
Yes.
Really.
I love that. I love that soulful. I mean, that's great. I mean, you should just coin that, is you have to be full on yourself before you can, again.
Yes.
So it's wonderful.
You will worry yourself to death, worried about others. I have cried at my desk with folks in the past, wanting things more than they wanted it for themselves. And something clicked. It was like, dummy, why are you crying? And they're not shedding a tear.
They're not worried.
They're not worried. Right. But I'm pouring all my resources, pouring all my finances, pouring all those things.
Yes.
No, there is a thing called reciprocation.
Yes.
And everyone that works with us, they understand there is reciprocation. Adrian is not just flashing everything out. Life will take you through changes, and isolation is necessary. Isolation is necessary for a lot of things. You close out all the noise.
Yes.
And you are able to evaluate. My phone does not ring after 5 o'clock.
Okay.
My phone does not ring on the weekends. Well, you know why? Because that is what it is. It is a lonely walk. I can't have conversations with a lot of people when it comes to operations and cost and
Right.
budgets and expenses, because they'll look at it, because I don't want them to know it,
You
because I
want
don't want them looking at me in a manner where they feel, well, what things can I get? You're not getting nothing.
Also, they don't understand it, so
And they don't understand it.
they interpret it in their own way, right?
Absolutely.
So they don't
Absolutely.
understand what they're looking at, and they start to create their own reality about
Absolutely.
what the situation is, and they have no
Absolutely.
idea. So Kim, you can jump in anytime. I just, I brought you to the spotlight because I want to make sure that you're here. But everybody, this is free flowing. You can jump into the conversation whenever you want if you have something to say. I have had an experience last year with an employee that that was homeless, and he came to me and said that he was homeless, right? And so that is my life's mission. If there's anything I care about, it's homelessness and food insecurity. Those are the two things that matter to me. So when this person came to me and told me that they were homeless, and that they were sleeping in their car, but their car was towed, immediately I said, okay, well, I can't have you, just not having anywhere to sleep. So I said, well, okay, let me work some things out. So I got him a hotel room, and I told him, I got you a hotel room. This is where you're going to stay. And it's close to the office, and you can get to work every day, whatever. So I set it up. So he came to me at the end of the workday, and he said, I don't want the hotel room. Can you just rent me a van from U-Haul so I can sleep in the van? And I said, well, I've already paid for the room. The room is already rented. And he said, well, I'm not going to stay there. I don't want that. So that for me was a lesson, right? In just thinking that we know what people, first of all, we think we know what people want, right? And then putting ourselves in a position, to help someone, and they don't necessarily want the kind of help that you're providing for them. And then when I told him, okay, all right, well, the room is there, you can have it. He came back 4 times and asked me to get him a van. And I said, I'm not going to get the van. So then he said, well, I'm not coming back to work. So that was, and that was an experience for me, right? So those are the lessons that I learned, that I've learned, is that, you continue to put yourself out. You continue to, try to be the person that everyone can depend on. But then when you need those people, they're not there for you. So at the end of the day, you have to keep it 100% business.
Absolutely.
And that's it.
Well, I think maybe we should ask first, because you said we think we know what people want, and the number one cause or the root of evil is miscommunication.
Yes,
Miscommunication is the root of all evil, right? So I think telling that person your purpose first, and then asking what they want and meet halfway, I think works as, in our industry or being entrepreneur. And I share your experiences, Lainika. I've been doing this as a business owner in healthcare for 20 years now.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
Yeah.
And I think we're all tough people. That's why we're still here, and tenacious people, and we persevered, and we're very persistent people. So it is what it is, right? Sometimes, but we move forward, and those are the takeaways of our lives being entrepreneurs.
And we learn.
And we learn.
Right.
But one thing I was just talking to a CEO of a very successful medical practice here for 40 years. And I asked him his secret, or what is his biggest learning. And he told me not to be loyal. And I was like, I was like, uh-oh.
Wow.
Like, that's what he learned, is not to be loyal. So I guess he is saying you need to be loyal to yourself. Because of all his experiences, 40 years, but still standing he went through a lot of partnerships and all that. Very, very successful. But that's what he told me, not to be loyal. For me, I think my biggest takeaway being an entrepreneur is, nursepreneur is, don't expect too much. And you always have yourself at the end of the day. So in my isolated moments, I had 2 years in isolation. I had to start. So 2 years again, after 13 years of success, I had to stop and isolate myself. I didn't have loyal friends. They were all gone. And you know what? I said, I can do this again.
Yes.
I did.
Yes, and you did. And that's and that is the point I wanted to bring up next, is that we've done it. So we know we can do it again. But what is that fear that makes us think, oh my God, if I lose it, what if I lose it? Like there's always that fear, right? Right? If I make the wrong move, but we can do it again. Kim, you've been in business for how long?
Been in business 18 years.
How long?
18.
18 years.
Yeah, 18 years, yes.
Wow. So
my company is a call center quality assurance company for behavioral health. And
so
we have
a call center company, and she and I wanted her to come because Kim, and I should have had you on the panel to begin with. Kim has been so supportive since I started my company. She has been an entrepreneur for, as long as, I don't know, as long as I have even been thinking about starting businesses. And she's always, given me good advice. So what do you do in those moments of isolation, Kim?
Well, isolation is not a bad thing. I have what I call my, and these are people who started with me when I first started, and they were where I wanted to be. So I was not around anybody that was behind me, where I came from or where. And so I can kind of dip in and out of there, kind of constantly call them to have that conversation. They're CEOs. We're equal, so I don't have to worry about them trying to take my stuff, that kind of thing. So it's a conversation. Sometimes we don't talk for 2 years. Then we'll talk every day for 5 months. So it's just kind of an announcement. So as far as isolation is not a bad thing. I have a very good team within my company, so I don't have to feel like I got to do everything. I learned that the hard way.
Yes.
Burnout is real. So but even with that, my employees are my employees. I don't get myself. I had to learn the hard way that I wasn't a social worker, that I wasn't their mom, that I wasn't all those things. I am their mom.
Yes.
And if you need help, I can give you an advance on your paycheck.
Right.
But,
I like what you said. You said, I'm not their social worker.
Yeah.
I'm not their mom. I'm their boss.
And I've had some great employees over the years. Good for me, my youngest daughter. I'm in a process of succession planning now because I've been doing it for 18 years without. I want to be able to prep my daughter. So my succession planning is starting with her. But because she's my family member, I have a lot more trust in her. And out of all my employees, she's the one that has the most business to do that. But you talked about earlier about reinventing. We started. It was called Channel Watch, and we were in a mystery shop for children.
Can you get closer to your mic? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I'm having a hard time too.
I'm gonna put in my earpiece.
Okay. So she started talking about succession planning. And I know, Flora, you just sold a company, which is super exciting. And I do want to hear about, the process of you deciding to sell and what goes into that, and then kind of the emotional part of that. Kim, you want to finish up real quick?
Okay, yeah.
Now we can hear you better. Yeah.
Okay, you can? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Better.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So we had to do a major reinvention several years ago, because what the company started out with and what we are now are like really two different companies. We were a run-of-the-mill mystery shop company in retail. Remember back in the day when there was CompUSA and those things? Well, we would go in those those stores as mystery shoppers. But then retail kind of imploded. So there is no more CompUSA. There's no more. There's Best Buy and Best Buy.
Right.
Big box. So we had to. Okay, well, I said, well, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Well, I had this. At the time, I had a business partner, and she had a brother that was a CEO at a mental health hospital.
Okay.
So he asked us to help him, and I said, and I was famous as any entrepreneur saying, yes, we can do it, and not having an idea what that I was going to do when I said yes.
Right.
I would figure it out before he figured
Right.
out that I didn't know what I was doing, kind of thing.
Right. Right.
And so that was our entry into the behavioral health industry, and so
Okay.
we became a call, what we are today, which is a call center quality assurance company.
Mm.
So reinvention is key. Reinvention and have a plan. I mean,
Yeah.
I redo my plan every year. I look at it every year. I make changes to it. Every 6 months, I'm looking at what I said I was going to do versus what I did. I lost a huge client last year. I mean, it brought me to my knees, and I lost it. It was my fault because I came out of who I was. Try to be. I got intimidated by the clients. They were so large versus doing what I know to do. So I don't consider it a loss because I learned something, but it still was, ouch,
Yeah.
So we're still recovering from that today.
I feel like there's a whole class in there
Yes,
on,
yes, it is.
staying true to who we are and not,
Yes, it is.
Don't waver.
but
Yeah.
allowing the work to.
So
Yeah.
for all those about taking a break, take your break, take your time off. If your business will fall apart because you're not there for a weekend, you probably don't have a business.
Yes, thank you for saying that. If your business falls apart because you're not there, you don't have a business.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
You have a hustle. You
Right.
have a hustle.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, side hustle. Yeah.
So, Flor, tell me about this. I know you have partners too when you sold, but tell me like the emotional part of that, because I think about, and someone was asking me the other day about the Trash Logic name. Have I thought about selling? And I said, I've thought about it, but I'm so emotionally attached to my name, right? and there's just this, it's my baby, right? So I know at some point I'm going to have to let it go, but that, how do you deal with that part?
It was really one of the toughest moments of my life, and I really didn't want to sell, but because of a lot of circumstances around that, and I really don't want to discuss about it. It's just, let's put it this way. It's like going through a divorce and you have your babies and you just have to go through it. And Kim said, you always have to have a game plan. Even if I had a plan B, it's still not gonna be easy. But again, you've done it before, and I think that's when you become a serial entrepreneur, like what Phil said. I like that. I'm writing notes, so always learning, taking down notes. I'm old school. But it's tough, and I don't know, you just have to go through it, go through it and get over it. You have to get over it, and you have to go through the grieving process normally. And if you don't, then you have to seek professional help, because again, having a business, it's when there's disagreement, because you're passionate about what you do. So the emotions can be intense. And I've seen that, and I don't understand why, but it becomes very intense, and you just have to go through it.
But like you said, it's like a divorce, right? So it's emotional like a divorce. So there is people are going to react to things differently. Some people go through a divorce and they just feel that, well, I saw this coming, and I was ready for it. Or like a death, right? I knew grandma was gonna go, so I was ready for it. But then there's some people that, they didn't see it coming and they didn't know. And it's something they didn't want and they were holding on to it. And they just, it's more difficult. So, I wonder when the time comes, how how easy or difficult it'll be for me to let go.
To let go. So that's the hardest thing, is how to let go. So I always think that if one door closes, and we always hear this cliche, right? You'll find things better, or one door closes, another door opens. I always want to add another bigger door would open. Instead of just like a door, it will be a bigger door. Or like
Right.
things happen for a reason. I always add things happen for a better reason. So always better from the previous position where you were at. So that kind of helps you. And again, surrounding your people who shares the same vision and are loyal to you in some way, because there will always be some people who would stick with you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I call it my core team.
Yes.
And I let my core know that my intention is building the core.
Yes.
So then that way, whatever other things develop and wherever we expand to, they know that that is their role, right?
Right.
But they know that they're part of that core. And there's a difference in regards to, we had a situation yesterday, and I was able to see one of my core individuals in our company just shine in a manner that it just took me back. And then it was like, oh my gosh, I'm releasing that component to that individual. I'll bring in whatever it is, but then he takes it and he goes with it. And to be able to have those individuals that you can rely on by building that core team and creating leaders amongst the core, it's powerful. It changes the trajectory of how your business can grow. It really does. But they have to want it too.
They have to want it.
They
Yeah.
have to want that too. And that is a component that I've had to realize over the years as well. Is
Going back, I want to go back to something that Flora said earlier. She said another CEO told her that his advice was not to be loyal, but she said that her interpretation of that was to be loyal to yourself. And I want to make sure that that was very clear, right? To be loyal to yourself.
Absolutely.
Because I think that is the message, right? Is being loyal to ourselves as we go through these different changes. Because I always say that when people say, well, what made you start the company? And I said, I was literally driving home one day from work, and I just heard a voice tell me, bet on yourself. And I pulled over and I wrote that down on a Popeyes receipt. I wrote, bet on yourself. And I put that on my nightstand. And I saw that every single day, bet on yourself.
I love that.
And the day that I decided to start Trash Logic, I picked up that paper and I walked downtown with that paper that said, bet on yourself. And I filed my LLC that day. But that was the thing about it, was that I decided to bet on myself. I believed I could do it. And when I was sitting at my mom's kitchen table and I was working on my business plan, my mother was just staring at me. And I looked at her and I said, what? And she said, I'm just watching you. And I said, this is going to work. She said, I know, I can tell. And I knew it. I felt it. I felt that this was going to be different. This isn't my first business. I've had several businesses, but this was the first time that I knew in my knower, right? I knew it in my knower. I knew that this was going to work. So when did you all know in your knower that you were an entrepreneur? That you knew, not just that you could have a business, but that you were an entrepreneur and you could build a company, not just have a business?
Well, I'll say this. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. My father was a fashion designer.
Okay.
Back in the day when I was little.
Wow.
As years went on, he left that and did some other things. And my mother has her own counseling company. So I come from a family of, in fact, I was raised with the statement, a job is an interruption.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Yes.
I like that.
I was raised
as
with
an
that.
interruption.
Yes.
That's a good way to be raised, because,
Yeah. So I was raised, even when I worked in corporate for almost 30 years.
Mhm.
And even with that, I knew in the back of my mind that was not my end. That was just a training ground.
Training, yep.
Yeah, and one day the Lord gave me so many ideas for businesses, and sometimes I was just too scared to jump out there. In fact, my biggest idea I will say this, was before there was a Kinko's. I had this idea because I used to type papers for legal students in law school, and I had this idea. If I can get a place right near the college, I can get a bunch of people to do what I'm doing. But I had little kids, so things that came went out the window. Then Kinko's came up. I'm like, that was my idea. And but when the Lord gave me the idea for my current business, I was still nervous. So what I did, I didn't want to let my idea go away. So I got a business partner, and that kind of stopped my fear.
Right.
He was
Okay.
an
That
MBA.
helps.
Yeah, so that we started together, but she was not an entrepreneur. So after a couple of years, she dropped out. But it was enough to
Okay.
get me.
But that got you over there.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's what I knew. Okay, this is me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I used to always say, some people don't know this, but when I was 15, I had a record deal, and I was in a group. I was in a singing group, and I always say that I could get up there because I had other girls up there with me, right? So it gave me, the boost that I needed, and I was like, yeah, I'm a tenor. My voice is deep. Nobody wants to hear a girl sing deep, but I had all these girls that had these sopranos and these alto voices that could sing with me, so I'd be okay, right? So that's kind of what it is in business, right? You have other people with other talents that can help you out, and so it gives you a little bit of a boost. Pam, when did you know that you could run a company?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I've kind of like you. I mean, I've always known I can sell, I can, keep doing. But, I think it was strange, when COVID and the pandemic hit, it kind of, when it all just went, okay, it's just me and everybody's remote and I'm just the only one in here. And oh my goodness, is my business still going to be here tomorrow or not? I think it just gave me like a new strength that I've always known I've had, but it just kind of reinforced it, because it literally, like, okay, part of my business, which is my other existing business, like it could have been zero. I mean, there was a very good chance that it was going to go away. And then the other business, which is the consulting business, which I've been doing for these last 5 years, I'm like, you know what, this is a time for me to really push that other business, which I've been in both sides of it. So I guess I, as a person who like have a certain amount of, I know, persistence and resilience and all that. But I'm still learning, just like I'm still going there. I'm like, okay, I can do this. There is always those moments of self-doubt. But when I was sitting in my office by myself here, when all my employees and everybody was remote, and I'm like, okay, I'm staying safe. It was like, oh my goodness, if all this goes away tomorrow, I knew that I could still do this all by myself if I needed to. And having that isolation, talking about isolation, that isolation actually reinforced it in a strange way, which I never expected. So I guess the answer to that question is I'm still learning, and I feel that I know I've always had it, but that just helped reinforce it. And like, okay, whether this is all gone tomorrow or not, I know I'm going to be okay somehow, some way. My family will be okay somehow. So I'm not sure if that's the answer to your question,
Yes.
but yeah. So just again, I think we're always constantly learning and evolving of who and what we are, and each of these things that happen in the world in our lives just kind of and reinforce that.
Yeah. Let's go to Adrian, then Tamisha, and then Flora.
So when we launched our company, I was at a crossroad, and I was doing all, the majority of the work, but I was making like 22% of my revenue
Okay.
before taxes. And I was like, something has to change, right? And so I was like, I'm going to launch our own company. And so when I launched it, I had $5,000. And I was like, I'm going to get my daughter to join on board, because I don't want to work the 90 hours a week that I know it's going to take to launch.
Mm-hmm.
So she's a millennial, and she was fresh out of college, and, they think different, they work differently. And so I was like really kind of dependent on her, and I had to get to a point where I said, I cannot rely on her for the vision that God has given me
Right.
to do it. And so
can't rely on anybody, right?
Right. And so, I was like, if I'm going to do this, I've got to make the commitment to be, 10 toes down, you know what I mean? And be ready to do what we need to do. And so for the first year we launched, I was like, I don't even know if we're going to be here in a year.
Wow.
And then when we hit our year anniversary, it was like, oh, dang, we're still here. You know what I mean? And then our second year anniversary, because we were mimicking a lot of what the other, firms do. And so my second year, it was like, you know what? Do you and do it the way that you know how to do it. And that was really when I recognized that it was like, okay, and there's things that we've done that are not the norm in commercial real estate, because typically people represent landlords and owners, and then by, firms do. And so my second year, it was like, you know what? Do you and do it the way that you know how to do it. And that was really when I recognized that it was like, okay, and there's things that we've done that are not the norm in commercial real estate, because typically people represent landlords and owners, and then buyers and, and tenants. And we made a decision early on that we were going to go a different path. And for us to be on this very tight niche path and to still be here 9 years later, it says something. The other thing I'll add is the month that we were going to launch our business, I was supposed to launch October 1st. And then I was going to launch it like mid-October. Found out October 4th that my grandmother was in the process of passing.
Oh, no.
And if I had leaned to the 15th, I would have never launched. And my mother withheld telling me because she didn't want it to stop me from launching the company, because she knew my grandmother wouldn't want me to be that. And so every year, I just am reminded about how God's provision is in place, right?
Oh, yes.
And I think there's times where the fear and the questions and the concerns and the worries come in, but when God gives you the vision, there's no termination date, right? And so, and I think that's one thing that we all have to remember. I too came from a family of entrepreneurs. My parents had a multi-million-dollar business in the 80s, and then they lost it. And they lost it because people weren't paying them. Net 30s came into net 90s, 120s, and my dad and my mom had 5 kids to feed. And so I watched the dissolve of that. I watched the loss of that. And so my philosophy is I wake up every morning, and every morning is Monday. Every day I get up, it's the first day that I operate my business. And that's how I focus.
That's
and
good.
that's my mindset.
Say that again. Every day.
Every day is Monday. Every day is Monday. And I never forget, when I first launched our company, I was doing, actually before I launched our company, when I first moved down here and I started in commercial real estate, my commissions were $25.
Wow.
I had bought a house. I had 3 kids, recently divorced. And I was like, what am I doing? But my faith was the reason why I did not quit. Because I felt like if I quit, I was quitting on God. I was saying that I didn't believe in God. And so those things are those constant reminders that play in my head daily. In those moments where I want to give up, in those moments that I'm unsure, in those moments, and I finally got to a place, COVID took me there, where fear became not an issue for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I'm going to say a bad word. Can I say a bad word?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Sure.
What happened for me, what was pinnacle, and it was years ago, 7, 8 years ago, a friend of mine said, fuck it, we'll save your life.
Hello?
Adrian, I think you're the queen of these things. We just need to put you.
Look, I'm over here writing
And
all of
when
them down.
that happened,
We're going to have t-shirts.
I made a shirt. I actually made a shirt.
I love it.
But that was the thing. And when and that was not a plug. That was not. But I did make a shirt. But the thing was that during COVID, all of our revenue stopped, because a lot of the deals that we do were service-based things. And I came in every day not knowing what was going to happen. I came in our building every day. Bills were compiling and compiling and compiling and compiling. And I just was like, okay, if we got to pick up and move, then we'll take all the furniture. I don't know what we're going to do. And we'll reset. But fuck it, saved my life.
I love it.
Because now I don't worry about anything. I come in with a force to be reckoned with every day. I don't concern myself. And when I allowed that to go out of me, opportunities became to happen. You know what I mean? And it's been such a pleasure to ride this journey of faithfulness and just trust and knowing it's all going to be fine. And what if it's not? All right, just do it again.
Right, do it again, like Flor
Do
said.
it again, like Flor said. Just do it again. You know what I mean? But yeah, those were the things that really were impactful for me. And I think having a reminder of where you can reflect where you were and where you are and where you're going, it's a good reset in itself. You know what I mean? It's a great reset.
I think, having that confidence, that fuck it, whatever, I mean, I can do this. Don't worry about whatever. It's sort of like when you're not looking for a boyfriend or a spouse or whatever, you're not looking for something, they all start coming to you. It's just like, I have the confidence, and it's like, I don't care. It's going to be okay. And I think that's also what in business, it's a great point.
I don't even feel like I'm working anymore.
Nice.
You know what I mean, Pam? It's like you get to that point and it's like, I am working, but clueless. You know what I mean? Clueless about,
I want to be clueless. Help me be
clueless. I'm clueless. I'm just like, oh my gosh. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like, I'm incorporating travel, all these different things now. And it's just a different type of movement, And I think it takes a long time to get there, but the sooner that you can, the better the playing field becomes.
Well, I'm gonna go to Tamisha, but I want to piggyback on what you said. So I think that goes back to the reinvention, right? And the stopping and starting, because I would say that a year ago or a year and a half ago, I was in that same place where I was like, I just, I travel, I check on my peeps. I'm like the kingpin drug boss where I drive around my corners, make sure everybody's still there, and then I go about my business. But I'm back in the trenches again, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm back in every day, touching everyone, making sure everyone's okay, and back knowing what's going on in every office. Whereas a year and a half ago, I wasn't. So I think that there is a wave in business, right? There's a wave.
Yes, there is.
There's a time when you're just kind of coasting and things are just working. And then you go through changes and you have to reset. And now I'm in that season of resetting, and I'm back in the trenches. And I think that's why the isolation is so important right now, is because when I walk away from that, I need to completely shut down and reset. And y'all, I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock every night. That is new
for real.
Right behind you.
At 9.
For real.
So Tamisha, when did you know you could run a company and not just have a business?
Yes. So there was a few things that actually kind of led to when I knew. I started my first business at 12. It was a babysitters club. I started off, I don't know if you guys have read the Babysitters
those were my books. I read all those series, the Babysitters Club.
Yes. So I always tell people to have your children read, because you'll never know exactly, what will come out of that. But my mom, we lived on military bases, and my mom was a corpsman in the military. So she was worked at a lot of the hospitals on the Marine bases. So I got the bright idea from the Babysitters Club to start my own club. And I had my friends, they were my employees. We went, back then we had to have a phone book. So we went line by line, found the street addresses that were close to the area that we lived, called, did the marketing, did the sales pitch, and did all of that. And that was very successful until I left that base. But prior to, really what it was for me was a lot of small wins that led up to the big win, right? So at 12, that gave me the confidence. We're going out there, we're making some big time money to be 12. And people trust us with their kids. We had a kid that was Down syndrome that we took care of. We had twins. We had just all sorts of, kids from all walks of life. And we were helping the parents because they wanted date night. They wanted, all of these different things. Time,
So you knew
away
from a young age that you would be able to run a company with
Solutionist.
employees.
Right. And that's, and Adrian, so that's the point. So I knew, just how I know now, is the only type of companies that I want to be involved in are solution-based companies.
Right.
And so even when I did have my corporate jobs through, the hotel industry, people always rely on me to help them start their businesses. And then I started, other businesses of my own. So again, there were a lot of small wins that just led up to
It gave you
the
the
big
confidence.
win.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's
Exactly.
that's so important. I think those steps and those experiences, right, along the way that give us the confidence to say, I can do this. Like I really can,
Yes.
and I can do it even if I don't have anyone else. I think
Right.
I think we get a boost from having other people, right? When I started this business, I did have other people that I could go to that could help me. And I had a pseudo business partner when I started. So it helped me. But in this process, realizing that I don't need anyone else. Like I'm smart, I'm brilliant, I
Right.
can do this. Like I can do this by myself.
Absolutely. If you have to.
If I have
Absolutely.
to do this by
If
myself.
you have to.
And if I have to start something else, I can start that by myself.
Absolutely. My mother went to return to pharmacy school.
Okay.
And we graduated in '89 together. I graduated from high school. She graduated
Oh,
from
Oh, that's dope.
And so, but watching my mother knew every role, even though she was a pharmacist, director of pharmacy, all the different titles that she's had. She knew every position.
Mm-hmm.
My mother taught me before I even really understood that I would be on this path. You have to be, and I think the more ingrained we are, the more respect that you get from your team.
Yes.
Because they know that you're just not giving the order, right? No, I can do the job.
I will do it.
Well, right? If I have to.
Right.
And so I think there's a respect that happens. I was a horrible employee. That's why I've been self-employed and entrepreneur for 22 years or 23 years. I was a horrible employee at times in my life. But it was because I was like, you're not just going to tell me what to do. And
Right.
I want to know the innards about what my role is for the entire component of the business, right? And so I think with watching my mom do that, that was something that I really learned at a young age. And it just resonates with me every time it becomes that position. I need to know everything, not because I can do it, but I need to know it. So in case I need to step in, I can step in. And there's a mutual respect that I think you gain with your team members. But they all know that, please, nobody's going to stop a show.
Exactly.
I won't even stop a show. You know
That's
what I mean?
first and foremost.
First and foremost. So those are things that, that we know. And you say it in a way where they recognize it, and it's not a power trip. It's just, it is what it is. So it'll be, yeah. But that was one thing my mom, she showed me a long time ago.
So Flor, tell me, when did you know? When did you know that you would be able to run a company and over and over again, and you could start over?
Well, as a young child from the Philippines, we have a small grocery store. It's called Sari Sari Store. Sari Sari Store.
Look at Jocelyn nodding.
Yeah, so I would help my
Yes.
grandma. I would help my grandma man the store. And I think that's how it all started. But, I've never imagined myself owning a business. Never.
Wow.
I was happy being an employee, but I only worked for the best companies out there.
Yes.
And I think my biggest, again, takeaways was like, I had to work while I was studying nursing back in the Philippines. And during my time, you don't work and study, you just study because your
Wow.
parents are obligated to send you to school. So if you're working while you're studying, you're poor. And we were. And I was one of the few student workers, working student at that time at McDonald's. And I've learned the basic customer service. And until now, the things that I've learned at McDonald's, I apply it to my businesses. So that's very helpful. Like, we have good customer service. I really don't want any complaints. I don't want my patients complaining. And I take it personal sometimes if they're not happy with the care. So the only patients that would complain about my care would be patients who would complain no matter what.
Uh-huh.
I worked at Mayo Clinic for 10 years, never had any patient complain for 10 years, but one. So when that was elevated to my supervisor, the supervisor said in the back of her head, it's like, I don't think Flor can be like that. Or because the complaint was like, I was mean and rude. So I
Okay.
told the supervisor, I can be mean and rude too. But going back to how I knew that I would be an entrepreneur, is like what I've said. I never thought of being a business person until I was the director of nursing at one of the home health agencies, and I was promised ownership. So it was like out of spite because the promise was not fulfilled, and I got invited, and that's how it started. And
Okay.
I was an entrepreneur, but I was a business owner, but I never considered myself as an owner because I'm a worker. So
Yeah.
I would do everything. I can be a CNA or a certified nursing assistant, assisting patients with their ADLs. I can do that. I can be a biller. I can be the nurse. I can be the administrator. So I think knowing everything in all aspects of your business is very critical to one's success as well. But it doesn't really have to, because that's when the delegation and finding the right people to run your business comes in.
Right.
But one thing I know for sure is sometimes, especially when you're starting a business, is you should be the hardest worker in the room.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Does that
And-
ever stop?
Yeah, it does. It never stops. And I think what happens when you are running when you're running a company, you get to a place, and we kind of alluded to this earlier, I think Adrian did, is that the people that don't know what you're doing, they don't understand what you're doing, they make assumptions about what you're doing, right? And so that can become a challenge to manage, because especially if you're a small business and everyone is very close, then people can start to decide that they know what's going on and what you should be doing, because they don't really understand the moves you're making and the decisions you're making, because they don't have all the information, right? They don't have all the information, and they're basing it on what they think that they know. Have you guys experienced that?
Yes, absolutely. And I love to train people, and I love to see them succeed as well. But and a lot of like you, Lainika, but you're you. I knew you're gonna be successful one day, and you have it. And you see these qualities in certain people, and then I am very open to like, hey, do you want to own your agency in the future? And I would train them, and I share. The only request that I have for all the staff that we've trained is to please not compete with me.
Yes.
Yes.
Just like,
Yes.
communicate.
Join in.
Right? But
Yeah.
you will experience also that no matter how kind or how
Yeah.
understanding you are to some of them, because you want them also to succeed, that they'll bite your hand.
They will. They will bite.
Literally and figuratively. So,
Absolutely.
but it's all good.
It's all
At the end of the day, you've helped someone and you're kind, and that's why you're still doing what you're doing.
One thing that I had to come to realize and really accept, I would get really angry because people would say, don't get mad, what they say, that imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery. And I say, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's annoying. Right? It's annoying. I don't like
It's just being human. I get ya. Yeah, right?
it's annoying. But I realized that, what is the saying? What's the saying? Always imitated, never duplicated.
Absolutely.
God gives you the vision.
Right.
I had a conversation with somebody last night.
Yeah. No one can
God
be
gives you the
you.
vision. They can go out and try and duplicate it, but it will not be the gift.
Right. It won't be,
Right?
because
It will
it's
not
you.
be the gift.
So
That's it.
there are companies out there that are using my intellectual property. Their contracts exactly like my contracts. You know, their SOPs are just exact carbon copies of my SOPs. That's all. And they left my company and they stole it all and they took it and they just put it into practice. But they're not me. So at the end of the day, they don't know what was in my head when I put that together. So
Right.
And they don't know what more is coming out of
and
the
they don't
brain.
know what more is coming.
Right.
What they have is 5 years ago.
That's what I love about entrepreneurship and not being under a huge corporate umbrella, because there's things that you're locked into
Yes.
under corporate veil, right?
Yeah.
But then as an entrepreneur, you can pivot and shift and expand and do all these things. And people never, and I think as an entrepreneur, because we have that free will and free flow of thought continuously, that's how that evolution works. You know what I mean? And so they might have a sense of what you've done, but what 10 other, 15 other things in our solitude
Right.
do you have time to think about?
Right.
And incorporate, right? So yeah, so go on and try and duplicate the
Right.
footprint.
It's like, what's Lainika 2.2? What's Floor 2.2?
That's it. That's it. That's it. You on 12. You know what I mean?
Not
Right.
2.0. What's 2.2? Right? You might be able to predict 2.0, but what's 2.2?
And just
Right.
adding on to that, Lainika, too, I mean, again, it's the whole back to the basics of people want to do business with you because they like doing business with you, the person, you, the company, you, how you run things. So I've gone through that same thing because I've had that happen to me a number of times as well. But again, back in my heart now, it's like, they aren't me. So,
That's it.
and most of the time, not all of the time, the client or whoever has stayed with me. And even like as I'm doing these webinars and trainings, again, they can copy the content, it's out there, but again, they're not going to get us as that other, added value.
Right.
So
They're just not.
I will say on the flip side of that though, so like even in our industry, so it's not a new, what I'm doing is not new, right? However, we did find some holes and where we could come in and provide a level of service to the restaurants, to our team of drivers, and to our community, to where, like I said, it's not a new thing. Food delivery has been around for 20 something years, and there are already large companies doing it, on a larger scale than we are. But I will say, what is for you is for you. And when we launched in 2019 in our main market, a year later, Doordash decided to come in, and they had just as many restaurants as we did on the platform when they first started. And at that point, we were not shaking in our boots, but we were definitely shaking. It was like, oh, okay, wait a minute. We've been in this market, the only delivery service here, for a year. And then we have this large company that everybody knows. They have a way larger marketing budget, a big name for themselves. They decided to come enter in the market. It was maybe 3 months after that, to the local restaurants slowly begin to take themselves off of the Doordash platform and only use car hops delivery. And so, I just kind of wanted to encourage people that if they are thinking about doing something that's, of course, already, is already being done, and larger companies are doing it, as long as you find what you're going to stand on, as long as you find your mission, your vision, and holes to where you can come in and help, be the change in that particular industry, go for it. Like, don't let larger companies stop you from thinking that you cannot go in, enter the market, and then dominate. So
being in business is not reinventing the wheel.
Right, absolutely.
I don't have time to reinvent the wheel. What I will do, I'm gonna make that wheel shine and squeak, and those tire prongs roll soft and smooth, and then add value to what's already designed, right? And that is what entrepreneurship is. It really
Absolutely.
is.
Beautifully said. Beautifully
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
Lainika, I hear you, like the intellectual property. I think like for me, like there's no stopping people from copying us. But as if you're on that other end, I think you should acknowledge where you got the forms, where you got your ideas. And I think for me that alone is a great way of saying thanks for training me, or thanks for showing me the way to become successful, instead of owning something that you really didn't own.
Right.
If, for
Right.
instance, your intellectual property.
Right.
That's all we need, like acknowledgement, acknowledging that it came from Lainika, or it came from Flor, or, Flor trained me, or Adrian trained me, and look where I'm at. And I'm very, very thankful that Adrian shared me everything about the business, and I'm going to be forever grateful. I think that's a big gesture of
Absolutely.
gratefulness.
Absolutely.
For me, that's enough, because I cannot stop people from doing what we're doing. There's no secret for me, and I share my secrets, but sometimes it's hurtful, and I get
It is.
you as well. Yeah.
It's almost like when you talk about disloyalty, it's like, really?
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, I don't mind. I want you to be successful, but don't kick me in order to get over me, right? Don't
Right.
do that.
No.
It's funny. I've actually,
Go ahead, Tamika.
well, real quick, I've actually had people to join our team as drivers to just kind of see if they could get a feel of how the company works just by the certain questions and stuff they ask, and then they will quit within a week or two. And I in my mind, I'm just laughing hysterically, because this is a hard business, and if you think you're going to just come, it's you have to have a certain type of grit for this business.
Yeah.
And even being in an association, or in the association that we're part of, but there's about 400 people that do what we do. Not many are doing well. So I'm like, try it, honey. If that's what you think you could do, just go ahead and try it. I see you at the top, I guess. So you're absolutely right. We can't necessarily let that stop us, but it definitely does sting. It's like, okay, really? You think you're going to try to come in here and do this?
I love having these conversations. I think that they're so important. Like I was saying, it's lonely at the top, right? This is a very isolating thing to do, to, be an entrepreneur, to run a business, to run several businesses. The last thing that I want to talk about is something that I heard mentioned earlier. Adrian said that she was not a good employee when she was working for other people. I wanted to talk about that because
I love the honesty.
Yeah, it's the honesty. And I will say that we talked about it in CEO school before, how it's not good to hire entrepreneurs.
It's not.
It's not.
It's not.
Right. But what you want are entrepreneurs, people who think about your business in an entrepreneurial way, but they don't have any plans to go start their own company. They don't have the desire. They really like the stability of working for someone else, but they do have ideas that can help you. So entrepreneurs are what you want to hire. And I will say that I was not, and even when I worked for Flor, like I was a great salesperson, but I did not like, and this is when I worked for every company, Republic, every company as a salesperson, I don't like being clocked. I don't like people asking me where I am. I don't like, for people to,
you can't leave with your kids.
Right. No. I don't like for my day to be, I don't like for people to put me on an agenda. Right. So I was not a good employee. I was a great salesperson. I always was. I could sell the hell out of anything, but I am not the type of person that you can expect to be in the office at 8:00. Don't ask me to be there. I might come twice, and then I'm just not going to do it again. I don't like, stop trying to get me to come back at a certain time. I don't like to be, so it's, have you guys been that person, and have you hired that person?
It's funny because I want to write a book, and I've always thought, like, what would I write about? And this very moment, I'm 39, and I've had more jobs than have been alive as far as the number of years. And it's exactly what you just said. I was always great at what I did. That's why I was able to always keep a job.
Right.
But I wasn't a good employee. If you would have probably got me to stay at your job a lot longer than I did, is if you would allow me to come and go as I pleased, didn't give me quotas. I mean, all this stuff. And so you are exactly right. Like I said, I've had, I think I counted like 45 jobs that I've had over the course of my life. And I've only been alive for 39 years. So to your point, like I said, and it's crazy because I'm the type of person that I will walk in. I'm a salesperson too. So I'm gonna walk in, I'm going to sell myself. I'm going to land the job. But again, I might not, as soon as you do something that I'm like, no, I'm good. I know I can go get something else. And I'm gonna use those jobs and those experiences and tailor my resume in such a way that I'm going to land any job that I go after. So to that point, you know, you could be a great employee, but you might not be, you know, great for the job. So yeah, absolutely.
And that was for sure me. I was not a good employee. I remember my last boss, I lived like 2 hours from where I worked. So he wanted to talk to me about being on time. And I'm like,
That was a never.
is there some work that I haven't done? Is there something missing? Is there something I haven't turned, you know, what's what? You know, I was a channel manager. And he said, no. I said, so I don't understand why we're having this conversation. And I was offended. And my biggest thing was I was tired of working for people and I knew more than them. I said, that's what I knew I had to have my own business for sure. When I got tired of my boss asking me about what he should do or they should do. Right. I was tired of that. But yeah, I was a horrible employee. I being tied down to a time. And I told them from jump, my kids come first. So don't ever ask me.
That's it.
My kid's gonna win. I don't care what's going on. If my kids need me, I'm not gonna be here. And I have boss looking at me and said, but this is very important. I said, okay, but bye. So yeah, I was a horrible employee. But I was good at my work, but a horrible employee.
So Flora, what's been your experience with entrepreneurs trying to work a regular job?
Oh, well, for me, I was always a good worker, honestly. Always. Humility aside, to a point when we first came here in the US, oh my God. So our coworkers were a couple of Filipino nurses on the floor working as bedside nursing. And then our colleagues, they were like, you guys are making us look bad.
Really? Yeah.
Because we were like, Floor, are you available to work this? Yeah. We just take in. So it wasn't really good to do it that way. So now I'm very Americanized. Like you have to say no. So we were just saying yes and yes to our employers and working our butts off like 12 hours, 16 hours. Yeah. If they want us to like sleep at the nursing facility, we would.
Yeah.
That time. And then I was very loyal. I'm very loyal. I spent at least 10 years. Mayo Clinic has to kick me out to like, hey, Flora, do you still want to work? Because you're only working twice a year last year. And you're still on a full-time benefited position. Yeah. So for a couple of years, so they had to like, leave us already where you're like persuading to like, Flora, what do you really want?
Yeah.
I was like, okay, fine, I'm gonna leave. So that's after almost 10 years. But I never wanted to like leave any job. If I can juggle like 4 jobs all at the same time, I will, even if I'm an entrepreneur.
Yes.
But you have to focus. And that's one thing that I'm not good at. Yeah. Because I'm like here, there, everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm doing TikTok, by the way. Follow me on TikTok.
Yeah. What's the channel?
She does.
Flor Magbanwa.
Nice. All right, I'll follow you.
Do that.
I wanted to say, Lainika, to Flor's point, just to everybody's point, is, thinking about the reasons why I wasn't such a good employee, I have incorporated those things into my own company and how I manage the team. Yeah. Because, and I feel like, I'm like, well, why don't most companies do this? But, giving them the opportunity to say no. Like if we're busy and I'm sending out a message, a mass message to the drivers and saying, hey, or like a driver who I know is normally available and they're like, oh, you know what, I can't today. It's totally, and I make them feel like it is totally okay that you are not available. Like go do your thing, you know? So I feel like it's, once we take, you know, really, if you like do like some self-study as to why, what made you such a terrible employee, then you can, you know, make sure that those are part of the pillars when it comes to how you manage your team too.
So I will say this, I will say that it's a blessing and a curse though, because I'm so laid back. I am very laid back. People always tell me, gosh, you're just so all the time. So I think that because I'm so laid back, people take allowances that they shouldn't take, because I'm not the person to look over your shoulder, right? I'm the person to say, here's the job, this is what I expect, you know, come back to me when it's done. And so when it's not done, I'll ask about it. It's not done, okay. So I'll say, okay, well, you didn't finish it. I need you to do it. And I might mention it 2 or 3 times, right? Because I'm just not a micromanager. But then when I say, okay, now we need to have a conversation. Have you guys read the book, Fierce Conversations?
No.
Okay, that book changed my life. That book changed my life in 2008. It's a book about how to have conversations with people that are just straight fact-based. And that book has absolutely changed the way that I speak to people when it's time to have a direct conversation. So the conversation goes like this. This is the job that I gave you. Did you understand the job? Yes, I understood the job. Okay, did you have any questions about the job? No. Did you run into any roadblocks? No. Okay, so why isn't it done?
Right.
You know, now at this point it's okay.
5 minutes.
So why isn't it done?
Right.
Now, then it becomes, okay, you know, all of these, you know, this, that, these excuses. Then, you know, now here comes the excuses. Okay, but I just asked you if you understood the job, if you had any questions about the job, and if you ran into any roadblocks or any challenges, and you told me no. But now you're telling me about all the challenges and roadblocks and all the reasons that you weren't able to get it done.
Right.
I just gave you the opportunity to tell me all of that. So now these are excuses, right? So you have no more opportunities. So you're either going to do it now, or we're not doing this anymore.
Right.
And so when we have that conversation, it goes from, Lainika is such a cool boss. She's so understanding. She's so laid back, to, oh my gosh, she's so mean. Right? It becomes, she's so mean. But at that point, there's no more conversation to be had.
No.
There's no reason for us to talk anymore.
You know, I was micromanaged to the point that I like wanted to hurt my boss. Like for real. I saw myself choking her, looking at her. And then I took a mental health leave when I was what they called it back then. So yeah. So because of those experiences, I too am very laid back. But I also, you know, our team knows what the expectations are. They know, you know, and you complete it in a manner which is good for you and good for the company. But people you really can be in a position where people can take advantage of it. When we've had conversations where things weren't done, or I really tried to get them to understand, like, here is why we're doing this, and you are important in this role for the whole organization. And so we are independent, but we are dependent upon each other, because if we don't do what we're supposed to do, none of you guys are going to have a job.
Amen. Thank you.
You know what I mean? And just having that conversation to that component, and then giving them allowing them to have that conversation and reflection. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, if you don't want it, then there'll be somebody else that's out there.
That's right. I find too, by setting the expectations up front
Mhm.
and setting milestones so they can see and you can see if you're hitting that milestone. If they're underperforming, it's not a shock to them when you come to them and say, well,
Absolutely.
this is not, because it should never be a shock to a person to go,
It
wait,
can never
I'm
be a
not
shock.
doing well. Yeah,
Right.
so if there's milestones there and there's mechanisms in place, I'm a process person times
Mhm.
1,000. Mechanisms in place for them to measure themselves. And one thing I like doing is allowing my employees to measure themselves. Now, sometimes people can be kind of delusional and they think that they're doing a lot better than what they're doing.
Right.
To help them see that, no, that's not what happened. You know,
Yeah.
this is what happened. But it's because I never, I've had to let go a lot of people, as you, I'm sure you will all do that. But I learned early on, if that person is shocked, then I didn't do my job. If they're shocked that they're getting let go, then there's something, there's a breakdown in communication somewhere, you know. So when I come to them and say it's not working out, they say, yeah, I know. You know, they should not be saying, oh, what happened? Yeah. So
Right.
that's, I think, just putting those mechanisms in place so that they can measure themselves and you can measure them and you can agree on that. So if it's not working out, it's easier to part and you don't feel, you know, as whatever, you know, when you say, okay, it's not a match, you know, this is not working
Yeah,
out.
I think we also have to realize that sometimes it's not even a performance-based situation, right? Sometimes you just need to talk to people.
Yeah, it's just not a
About,
match. It's just not a
Yeah.
match.
you
Yeah,
know,
What's
yeah,
going on? You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Sometimes
What is going on?
Yeah.
I'm noticing a difference in regards to
Mhm.
how you're coming in. Like you mad at the world coming into
Right.
your office. But what?
All right. Okay,
I didn't
thanks.
do nothing to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's understanding because the people are going through so much right
Yeah,
now. And
life
empathy,
experience.
you can be empathetic, but you can also still keep those boundaries. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that it doesn't impact from an operation standpoint.
Yeah.
But empathy, I think, is key because everyone has something that's going on. And you don't know. I used to when my kids were coming up, I said, you don't know what somebody's going through. So if you can render a smile,
Yeah.
that might be the bit of hope that somebody needs.
I
Or
told my
that might
son that
be
all
the
the time because he would get, you know, he had a teacher that he was going back and forth with, and he said, I don't know, you know, what's wrong with her, and she's always mad. I said, you don't know if she has a parent that she's losing. You don't know that, you know, if she has a sick dog or, you know, she just lost a pet. You don't know what's going on when she leaves those doors and goes home.
Yeah.
So don't make her day worse.
That's right.
You know, you don't go in that
That's
classroom and make her day worse. We don't know what anyone is going through.
So I have a question about that.
Yes.
So I think it was Floor that said that there was a gentleman that gave her the advice on to not be loyal. And I find it very interesting that, you know, of course, this is a panel full of women.
Yes.
And you know, I just wanted some advice because this is actually, I'm sure this will help other people, but it'll definitely help me. Even when it comes to, you know, having that empathy and all, I feel like a lot of times as women, that's something that we naturally do. And I know you said your son was like, oh, you know, so he's a guy.
Right.
But I want, like, what's your advice to be able to balance that, that what we naturally have is like the empathy and being loyal and all this to what, you know, the guy how he gave Flora the advice is like, look, no, you got to be loyal to yourself, or, you know, don't be loyal, or, you know what I'm saying? So how do you, what does that look like?
I'm going to pose it to Flora because I'm going to pose it to Flora for two reasons. Number one, because I have empathy only to an extent, right? I have my empathy. I'm empathetic until I feel that I'm being taken advantage of, right? I think Floor is a very, like, naturally just, she wants to help, like, empathetic person. So I really want to know, Floor, from you, you know, how do you balance that out when you feel that, you know, yeah, I'm being empathetic, but, you know, people are taking my kindness for weakness?
Well, unfortunately, I had so many experiences related to that, but I was surprised when I asked this person, like, what's your biggest learning? And that's what he told me. And I was silent for a moment.
Like,
I wasn't expecting that, you know?
Right.
And you went back to like, yeah, that's true. Okay. I think loyalty and expectation should go together.
Mm-hmm.
So for us to, as entrepreneurs, to not get hurt too much, it's like, okay, we can be loyal to everyone around us, and but to a certain degree.
That's
So
right.
Yeah.
there should always be moderation in everything we do. I think if we go overboard, that's when we feel the hurt. So the less expectation, the less hurt you get.
The
Yes.
less expectation, that's what it is.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's what
I'll
it
just
is.
say something. You know, don't be loyal. And what I would say is be loyal to your company. If you're loyal to your business, that helps you balance stuff.
Mhm.
I take. I think I'm frozen here. I don't know what's
Yeah,
going on here.
you
Yeah,
are.
we can hear you though. You
Okay.
are
Okay.
frozen, we can hear you.
Okay. I I have one-on-ones with my key staff either every week or every other week, and so that's kind of what part of that one-on-one is to check in with them, not about what their work, but about their person. You know, how are you doing? How, you know, it's a short part of the one-on-one, but that's where I can kind of gauge, are they going through something? You know, their mom in the hospital. So, and then if I found that they have a major life situation going on, that's in my head. So I know I'm going to keep a little closer eye on what they're doing, 'cause I know they have this little whatever going on. And if I see it affecting their work, you know, I'll mention that in the one-on-one. But I'm always loyal to my business, which means that if if you don't fit in that, then I don't know what to tell you, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm not loyal to the people. I'm not a cruel boss at the same time. I've been bitten too many times by trying to, you know. But my husband's a minister, so you can know helping people is part of my, you know, DNA, you know, whatever. But I've learned that if I'm loyal to my company, I can still be loyal to people and have that empathy, but at the same time, the
Still have a
business,
company to run.
I have a company to run, you
That's
know,
right.
and it's, you know, I was telling my daughter, I said, you know, this is not about your feelings. This is about the company.
That's
You
right.
know, now if I'm in mom mode, it's about your feelings. But when I'm in CEO mode, this is not about your feelings.
That's
It's
right.
about we have a job to do.
Yeah.
And so teaching her, trying to teach her that as I want her to become a CEO, you can't mix the two, you know. And sometimes it's a hard call. You know, I had an employee, you know, she had some really major personal stuff going on, and it really affected her work. And so I asked her, I said, do you want to take some time off? Because it's really affecting your work, you know. And that was my way of being empathetic, but at the same time being loyal to my company, you
Right.
know, because it's affecting her work, you know. 'Cause I said, because otherwise it's going to be a problem here. So that's kind of where I find the balance.
Mhm.
So Kim, with you, it seems like so did I hear you correctly? You have a layer of maybe managers or some, you know, some type of layer before your like the majority of your staff.
Well, what recently, what I did is, and recently I would say in earlier this year, beginning of this year, I have a chief of staff.
Okay.
And I got that person because I needed a layer between me and my people.
That's what I think I need.
Yeah, because my chief of staff don't play. You know,
Okay.
she knows everything that's going on. You know, she if something needs to happen, she needs to happen. So that's kind of how I help myself help myself. You know, she's got her little fingers in everything. You know, and she's really good at what she does. But at the same time, everybody knows that Kim is the CEO. But if my
Mhm.
chief of staff comes to you and there's a problem, you know, she doesn't go to anybody without talking to me first. That's first. She's not going to go talk to, you know. So it's not a surprise to me that there's an issue. But I did give myself. So that's one of the things you can do is give yourself a layer between you and your like Lainika. You have a lot of different locations, so I'm sure you have those built-in layers because you
Yeah, so I have a management layer between me
Yes.
and my
Yes.
field staff.
Yes.
This is what I'll say, because we're going to close out in 4 minutes. So I will end with this. I think the biggest takeaway today that I got was be loyal to yourself.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That was the biggest takeaway for me. So I like to go around. We have basically 3 minutes left, and I'd like for everyone to tell me, what is your biggest takeaway? What do you want to leave the audience with? Adrian, 1 sentence.
Trust you.
Trust you. I love it.
Trust
Floor.
For me, it's always going to be biggest takeaway: less expectation, less stress, less frustrations.
less expectation, less stress, less
less frustration,
Less
less
frustration.
expectation, less frustration. And at the end of the day, you always have you.
That's right.
always have you. Yes. Tamisha.
Yes, mine was be okay with the space of isolation because that's exactly where I am now. So just being okay with it and knowing that in due time, things may open up. But right now I'm being okay with being isolated.
All right, Kim.
I would say trust the vision that God gave you.
Trust the vision.
Trust that vision that God
Trust the vision. Yes. Because if you wrote it down and made it plain, then you got to trust it.
Right.
Amen.
Right.
Absolutely.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us at the Founders Table, sponsored by CEO School. This has been amazing. Sheena, thank you for coming into the room. I hope you enjoyed it and you got some nuggets today. I am so excited.
I absolutely did. Thank you for hosting this.
You are so welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Remember, CEO School is hosted every Friday at noon Eastern, 9:00 a.m. Pacific time. And I am your host, Lainika Johnson. Thank you guys. Have a blessed day, and I will see you next Friday.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you,
Nice meeting
Lainika.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye, ladies.